As you can see on this first slide here, my name is Jennifer DeBona, and I do business as that CAD girl. I am a Carlson reseller, and I'm located in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm also recently a member of the Carlson College, and that means that I'm certified to consult and do training on Carlson Civil and Survey, Hydrology, and GIS, basically the Civil Suite, and also on Takeoff. As I've got listed here as well, I'm also a founder of a new website called carlsonconnection.com, and I'm doing that with Felicia Provenzel, who some of you may recognize that name. And I do believe this is the first webinar that Carlson's presented and allowed someone outside of Carlson software to present. So I do want to say I appreciate the opportunity. And I guess we'll get going. So today's topic is CAD standards. And this is obviously a huge, huge topic. And since we only have probably 45 to 50 minutes really for presentation, unfortunately we'll only be able to hit the high points of this. And in addition, we've got about 600 people signed up for this. So there's obviously a lot of interest. But we're going to go through a few things and really need to count on you to get your feedback so that we can plan future topics. There will be a follow-up email that has a question and allows you to give some input there. So please take the time at the end of this to fill that out. Okay, so we're going to move on here. And what I want to do real quickly is just explain for those of you that are not real familiar with the GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting format. You have your control panel on the side of the screen, and I'm not sure really where everyone has it docked, but if you look about in here, I think you should be able to see my mouse. There's a little place that you can raise your hand. So we're going to do a little bit of polling as we go through just to see what kind of audience we have and see where everyone is. Also for questions on that control panel, we have Lad Nelson from Carlson Software who will be monitoring questions and answering them in the questions palette. So just wanted to give everybody an overview of how we're going to work that. So let's go to the first question. And what we'd like to find out is, we'll put everyone's hands down, just by a show of hands. If you would please let me know, raise your hand if you will, if you're currently using Carlson software, because we believe that we have a lot of people who are just kind of checking that out. And this is something we're going to be able to see on our end. And we'll give it a couple more seconds. It's still going up. All right, so we look to be at about 60% of the people that are here are currently using Carlson software, so that's good to know. Okay, so for our next question, we've actually got two different types of standards that we can talk about. So standards can really be broken down into two components. You've got your CAD standards that apply to the basic CAD platform. So that would mean AutoCAD, IntelliCAD, and so on. And then you've also got other CAD standards that are going to apply more directly to Carlson software. So we'll put all the hands down again. And if I could ask you to raise your hand now, if you are mostly interested and if you're here in the standards as they apply to AutoCAD or IntelliCAD, the platform. All right, so we have about 40%, it looks like. And then we have one more quick one. I appreciate everybody kind of following along here. So next we want to know if you're mostly interested, and this should be the other half of that, in standards as they apply to Carlson software. So we'll put all the hands down, and now if you would put your hand back up, please. Okay, another about 40% it looks like. So, all right, so very good. And we'll go ahead and move on. So now let's talk about what belongs in your CAD standards. We have a pretty good split here. So we're going to be talking about both standards as they apply to AutoCAD and IntelliCAD, and also as it applies to Carlson. So as you're developing your CAD standards, what do you need to include? And I know that everyone will probably have their own answers to this, but as I do my consulting with different companies and sit down to work out their CAD standards, these are the things that I'm going to recommend. And we're just going to touch on some of these briefly. Again, the questionnaire at the end asking what topics you'd like to see expanded upon. These are the kinds of things we're going to touch on right now, but feel free to fill out that at the end if you'd like to see more on it. So project workflow is a big one. Really with consulting, again, from a land desk, or from a land, civil engineering, land surveying standpoint. My background is mostly in land desktop with AutoCAD and IntelliCAD or what have you. But project workflow is really a starting place. And this is, we always aim to do better. But a project workflow really talks about how a project walks in the door, the different types of projects that may walk in the door, whether it's a boundary survey, whether it's a multi-phase development for subdivisions, like anybody's actually designing subdivisions too much these days, unfortunately. But just what the project's going to entail. Does it go to your surveying department? Does it go then to, engineering? Does someone work on, the existing at the same time some of the proposed work is being done? So this is really just a flow chart a lot of times on a whiteboard, but it will really help where your CAD standards go. It helps working with your software, and it really can save you a lot of money depending on who needs what software. You may realize that you have extra seats being used where you don't need a full Carlson Civil Suite. I know this is bad to say right now, but you may just be able to share some of those on a network installation, and you may not need everything that you have. So the next one is going to be your file naming convention. And this is a big one as well. How do you name your files? How do you name your DWG files? Do you put the project number in front? Do you put the project number in back? That usually should be part of it. So that, again, I know every one of these is probably a fight in someone's office. But next is the project folder organization. So this is, what does your project folder look like? What folders are under there? Do you have a correspondence folder? Do you have reports? We usually have a drawings folder. You may break it down to all of your roadway files. Carlson has their project management set up so that you can specify this, customize it exactly like you like. Are you going to, a big question in a lot of offices is whether I guess a lot of accounting departments are going to have their own set of project folders, whereas the design side has their set of project folders. Are you going to combine that, or are you going to break it out? So again, these are big questions, and I know that. All right, next is the drawing file organization. Every one of these are big. How do you set up each drawing file? What are the contents in each drawing? Should everything be in one drawing? Or are you going to have a base file that has all of your existing and maybe GIS data? Are you going to extract those into your master files? What's going to be in paper space, if anything? Hopefully it is. But how do you break that out? Where this really gets solved a lot of times is on that number 1. On project workflow, it's going to help you. That's why I put it at the very top of the list. If you set up that project workflow, figure out how to make the best use of all of your resources, people, computers, everything, it's really going to help know what drawing files need to be created and not overdo it, because sometimes it's overdone, sometimes you don't need it. Just to, again, kind of interject a couple things that I'll recommend is that you may have you've got different types of projects, obviously, that come in the door. If you have a multi-phase, 1,000-acre subdivision or a multi-use development that's going to be broken into multiple phases and go on and go on and go on for years and years, are you really going to treat that the same as you would a CVS drugstore site plan that can pretty much be done by one person? Probably not. So one thing in CAD standards I may recommend, or I have recommended for a lot of people, is that you classify the projects that come in. And you don't want to, do something 180 degrees different, but for those larger projects, you may want to break those out quite a bit more than you would the smaller ones. So you may handle those differently. Okay, a couple more. Drawing transfer protocol. This is a big one. How do drawings get transferred? What is the procedure for going to and from consultants? Because you want to protect some of that data. Are you going to bind your XREFs if you're using it? So that's a big one. Also, the electronic file transfer statement that usually goes in emails these days. Do you have one for your office? Again, from protecting the company, protecting from liability. Just one recommendation that I can put in there a lot of times is in that electronic file statement that whoever unzips this file agrees to our terms. So that's kind of cheesy. But then obviously that would be part of your procedure. Always zip the files, even if it's only one file. And then if they unzip it, they are agreeing to your terms in this. So a little bit of covering up there. So let's see, we've got a couple more. Template drawings. This is a big one. I'm actually going to skip this right now because I'm going to get into that in depth in the next slide. So we do have template drawings that we're going to need to develop as part of our CAD standards. And then block libraries, again a big one, and archiving procedures. I just want to make kind of a blanket statement. I'm not sure how many out there are using Carlson with IntelliCAD. Actually, let's get a hand raise if we can. I don't have a slide for it. I'm going to put all hands down. I hope I didn't just mess somebody up. But who's using Carlson with IntelliCAD? Please put your hands up. Okay, we're seeing close to 20%. Make a quick note of that. So everything that we've gone through here, so let me back up one. No, I don't know if I can. But anyway, all of these with the CAD standards, everything that I've listed here is going to work primarily the same, whether you're using an AutoCAD installation on top of AutoCAD installation or whether it's an IntelliCAD. And there are a couple of differences in the next slide for drawing templates, and I'll mention those. So what should be included in your template drawings? Well, actually, let's back up. What is a template drawing? A template drawing, very simply, is can be any DWG file that you change the extension to a DWT. So there's really no difference in the file format other than that extension name change. But a template drawing is the starting place for all of your drawings. So you can assign a template drawing, and every new drawing that you start in AutoCAD or every new drawing you start in IntelliCAD will use that template drawing as its starting place. So some things that you can include in that template drawing would be all of your layers with their line types, the line weights, and whether you have them set to a plot or a no plot. Okay. You would have your text styles set up. Okay. Text styles is a big question mark. How do you set that up? I'm again going to skip over that because I've got something in detail that we'll cover in just a few minutes. Dimension styles, another thing that can be set up in your template drawings. Page setups with your CTB or STB, so those are your plot style tables. Those page setups with those default assignments. And I put in here that this is for AutoCAD. Right now, IntelliCAD does not have page setups that can really be defined. And at the end of this, we're going to take some questions about the last 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to have questions, and we may try to, I may be a little bit wrong on that, but primarily when we think of page setups, we're going to be talking about AutoCAD. The CTB files and STBs, for those of you that know or that don't know, the CTBs and STBs can be applied and are applied in IntelliCAD just like they are in AutoCAD. The page setups is kind of the difference here between AutoCAD and IntelliCAD. And then something that I work with my customers and clients is setting out a layout tab with your standard title blocks in your template drawing. And this is something a lot of people don't do. It's becoming a little more common. And that's something maybe we can talk about in a future session. But, you know, you may have a layout tab in your template drawing for an 8.5 by 11 sheet, for an 11 by 17, for 24 by 36. You can have them set up differently, landscape and portrait. So there's a lot of things you can do and then start drawings using those tabs. So these are things that I think that you would definitely want to include in it. And we'll look here and get this moving. So the next question is going to be, where do you need to keep those template drawings? Okay, well, the obvious question, if you have one, put it on a network, put it where everybody can get to it. You want everybody using the same ones. And then how do we specify the default template drawing? And so I'm going to look at both AutoCAD and IntelliCAD. And I've just launched a new AutoCAD. I've just launched a new IntelliCAD. So here I am. This is Carlson Civil 2009 on top of AutoCAD. So if I right-click in my command line and go to Options, I have a Files tab. And under Files, if I scroll down, I have Template Settings. And under Drawing Template File Location, you can see here where that's saved. Okay, and then just quickly moving over for our IntelliCAD users. Again, you right-click on Options. This is Carlson Survey 2009 with IntelliCAD. Right-click and go to Options. We have a Paths and Files tab here. And here in the bottom under Template, again, we actually can specify the template name here, and the path can just be set here. So, again, very little difference. So, switch back here. I'll just cancel that. And let's go back to the PowerPoint. So now we've got all this
Jennifer?
done. Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious if you could maybe just speak up just a little bit. We're having some people that are having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, so I'm hearing in my ear that people are having a hard time hearing me, so I will, hopefully I'm going to speak up a little louder and just let me know.
Yep, that sounds good.
Hopefully that'll be better. So we'll move on, and let's talk about now, again, you've got all of your CAD standards set up, and you start your files with template files. But what happens if you're like me and you have a really bad habit of purging everything? So once you purge, as you know, if you purge, you're going to get rid of any unused layers. You're going to get rid of any unused text styles, any unused line types. And then, of course, what's going to happen? You need that particular layer that you didn't think you were going to need. So we have a couple of answers for this. So I say learn them and love them. For AutoCAD, we have the AutoCAD Design Center. And for IntelliCAD, there's something very similar. They've got one minor difference, but that's IntelliCAD Explorer. So now why do we need these? So you may be saying, well, if I purge and I need to recreate, it's real easy. All I do is recreate the layer. But if you're a CAD manager, you know what happens. Every time someone purges and has to manually change that or create that layer again, they may remember the color and they may not. They may actually give it a good attempt, but they may not. And really the philosophy you need to use when you're particularly a CAD manager is it needs to be easier to use a standard than it is not to use the standard. So we have tools like AutoCAD Design Center and IntelliCAD Explorer that will allow us to recreate those standard elements. So again, let's go back and let's look at how AutoCAD Design Center works inside of AutoCAD. So here I am. Let's just look, and we'll just really show what layers we currently have in this. It's an empty drawing. So to go to AutoCAD Design Center, I can use this button here, or I can type in ADC for AutoCAD Design Center. And for those of you that haven't been to it, it's a navigator. So on the left side, it looks like an Windows Explorer. And I can actually branch out. And if I dig down into my folder for today, you can see that I have a DWT file saved here. But it's not like Windows Explorer, because if I drill down into that DWT file and I look at the layers, this is all of the layers that are in that drawing. So the drawing's not even open, or the template file. The DWT file is not even open. But here I can see all of the layers that are in it. I can see the blocks, which there aren't many. I can see the line types. This is different from AutoCAD Design Center and IntelliCAD Explorer. In AutoCAD Design Center, I can see the layouts that are in that template file. So if you think about setting it up with the title blocks like I mentioned a minute ago, you might get some use out of that. So here's my template drawing. Here are the layers. How do I get these layers into my drawing? So I may want this C building, and I may want all of the C-building layers. So I'm just going to hold my shift and select several of them. And I can left click and just drag it into the drawing. And so I'll close it. And then if I pull this down, you can see that those layers are here. They're set up with their assigned properties. If they were no plot in my template drawing, they're going to be no plot here. So this is a really cool way to get those layers back in. And again, also when I purge, if I've lost text styles, I can bring those back. So now let's look at the same thing, except this time we're going to have to do it in IntelliCAD. Actually, I brought IntelliCAD up, and I couldn't even tell the difference there. So in IntelliCAD, we use this button here, which is IntelliCAD Explorer. And you can see right now it's showing IntelliCAD Explorer layers. So for those, again, that don't know IntelliCAD, this is a combination. IntelliCAD Explorer is a combination of the Layer Manager in AutoCAD and AutoCAD Design Center. So on my layers, I can see the layers that are currently in this drawing. Now here's the difference between IntelliCAD Explorer and Design Center. I actually have to have my template drawing open in IntelliCAD, where I don't have to have it open in Design Center. I'm going to open that up. Okay, so if I look at my window, you can see that I have Drawing 1 and I have Standard. So I'm going to switch back to my Drawing 1. Now let's look at IntelliCAD Explorer and look at the different drawings. So this shows all the drawings that I have open. So right now, here are the layers that are in Drawing 1. Here are the layers that are in my template drawing. So if I want to do the same thing we did a moment ago, I can just use my Shift key, select them. Here I have to right-click and do a copy. Now I select on layers for Drawing 1, and I can paste. And again, they're brought in with all the same properties. So again, a very handy tool. If you're not using it, you kind of should be, I think. It'll probably save you a few headaches. So now we'll go back to the PowerPoint. And let's look a little bit at Carlson's standard files. So there are shared support files. The shared support files, when I mention that, I really mean your line type definition, so the .lin files, the shape files, the SHX files that will define maybe fonts, that will define shapes in your line types. Support files are also your drawing templates. So again, where do we want to save them? Definitely on a network. But what you can see here, I've just brought a screen capture in real quick to show you what that looks like in AutoCAD. So you can see in my list at the top, when I install Carlson on top of an AutoCAD, it actually puts that, you can see the location. That's why I did the screen capture instead of having to tell you or type it out or anything. You can see the SUP folder under the Carlson 2009 installation files. And then right below that, there are some more support files under Program Files, Carlson 2009, ACAD 08 in my case. So again, where do we get those? If we just look at AutoCAD, and I go back to that Options tab, under Files, right here under the Support File Search Path is where I pulled that screen capture. So if you need to add a network file, or sorry, a network folder to this, you just simply pick the Add button, and you can type in or you can browse out to find wherever your network location is and select it. And it's going to look through these paths in order. So if that is where my primary files are stored, I would want to move that up in this list and make sure it's at the top. Okay, you may, I'm not going to go any further on this, but let's say we just add. I don't want to really tell you to remove anything from here, so we'll just add that. Okay, so that is your shared support files. Beyond that, we're going to still be in Carlson, but what else is Carlson going to need? We have the INI and CFG files, and I really should adjust this because there are a lot of settings files in Carlson. So where do we get those settings files? So let's switch over, and I'll just stay in the AutoCAD release here. So those settings files, for example, if I go to Settings and Project, Set Project Data Folders. When I'm setting up my standards for Carlson specifically, you'll notice that in any of these setup dialog boxes, most of your command dialog boxes, I'll switch here, Project Subfolder Setup. You can see that I've taken a little bit of time to create this. And I have a Save As button for most of these dialog boxes. If I select that Save As, notice it saves a PRF file. So I can save that PRF file, again, to a network location where everyone else can find it, and then use the Load button to go find it. And to load it, you load it once. Okay, so pretty much all of these commands can be done individually like this. You've probably noticed all the Load and the Save As buttons. I can hit the Data Type subfolders. You can see all of this has been assigned. Again, Load and Save As. And I'm just going to pull up a couple others just to show you how predominant it is. Triangulate and Contour, Load and Save As. Under Area and Layout, Area Defaults. Notice you have a Load and you have a Save, so it's not Save As. There's some consistency problems there. But you can kind of see, once you go through it, it is some work to go through and set all of this up the way that you or your company is going to need. But once you've done that, you can either save out those individual files, or if you notice, you can go to Carlson Configure. There are other other settings in this dialog box that can also be set up. But notice the Load and Save As button right here. So this is kind of the big one. And I guess let's just make this real clear. All of those command dialog boxes that have a Load and a Save As button, you don't have to do a Save As for each one of those. As long as you make the changes that you want in all of those command dialog boxes, if you come here to Carlson Configure and pick Save As, this actually creates a CFG file, which works the same. It's saved in a network location, but it wraps up, rolls up all of those command settings. into one handy little file that can then be loaded by everybody the first time they get in. Okay, so it may develop a question here. If I can just come in here and create one CFG file, why should I have to go to, do a load and a save as for each of these individual commands? Well, one reason is profiles, and that's why I brought this up, is how many different types of profiles do you create in an engineering office? You may have your existing ground with a roadway profile, so your proposed roadway profile. You may have sanitary sewer profiles. You may have storm drain profiles. You may want each of those labeled a little bit differently. So you may just set all of your draw profile settings up so that it works with your road profiles, and then go in here and do a save settings and create a PSS file for your road profiles. Then you can make changes, make it look like your sanitary storm needs to look, or I'm sorry, your sanitary sewer needs to look. Do a save settings and call this sewer profile, and then ditto with storm. So hopefully this is helping a little bit, just kind of understanding all of these. Carlson does create a lot of files. I don't think it creates anything more than other programs like Land Desktop created, except that those were kind of all wrapped up and you couldn't get to them. Here we kind of see all of those files, so it's a little bit overwhelming sometimes. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about text style standards. And the reason that, again, I try to do this at a high level without digging too deep into too many things. But one thing that I've found working with Carlson the last several years is with my clients is that one of the things that confuses my clients most when you come to Carlson from a Land Desktop, or even when you come to Carlson from just a basic AutoCAD, is how does Carlson, how does it manage text? I don't understand all of these scaling settings and everything, and it's a little bit, it's confusing if you don't understand it. I don't know that you'll understand it when you finish here, but maybe it'll be a little bit more clear. So any discussion about text style CAD standards, this is a soapbox issue for me, is please don't change your text style standard. Standard is a default text style that comes with every AutoCAD installation. It doesn't have anything fancy. I mean, change standard font if you want, because the txt.shx is it's kind of ugly. So change the font if you want to something very basic like a simplex font or a Roman S font, but don't go too crazy with it. Leave the text height associated with your standard text style to be 0. And the reason for this, again, AutoCAD creates standard for its use. Standard is the default text style that's used in dimension styles. Standard is the default text style that's used in the default line types. So if you have a W in your line type, I can't remember, there are a couple that come with AutoCAD with text in them, and they use that standard text style. So don't monkey around too much with it, or you're going to see problems in your dimension styles and in your line types. So I'll climb down off the soapbox for that one. So moving on, when you're working in AutoCAD or IntelliCAD, we generally have to create those text styles up front. And I've broken that down, and from what I've seen working with a lot of different groups, is that there's 2 different methods that most groups will use when creating their text styles. So I'm going to hit them one at a time and do a little demo. So multiple defined text styles based on the font and the height. What in the heck does that mean? Okay, so let's switch over to AutoCAD. And when I talk about multiple text styles, I'm going to start off by typing in, I'm a typist, so started a long time ago on AutoCAD. So I type in style, and it brings up my text style dialog box. Okay, so we can see our standard text style here with the ugly font. So if I'm going to take this method that creates multiple styles that correspond to a text height, I'm going to create a new style, and I'm going to call this, it's probably one that's familiar to a lot of you, L100. So if I have an L100 for a new text style, and I'm just assuming here that I'm working with a 100 scale drawing, then my text height for L100 is going to be 10 for a 100 scale drawing. And I'm going to change that ugly font to, let's say, a Roman S is what I've always used here. So that's how I would define a text style that has an assigned height. So I'm going to hit my Apply button, and I may need another one. So I'm going to create another new one. This one will be L200. Well, L200 is going to correspond to a 20 text height when I'm working in a 100 scale drawing. So I've set up my text styles. Now when I need to put text in my drawing, how do I do it? Well, I'm going to type in dtext. This is single line text. You can see that my current text style is the last one I created, which was L200. I'm going to pick my starting point, and here's where I want you to pay attention to the command line. Because I've assigned the text height here, it's not asking me for a text height every time I put in text. So that's the trick. Rotation angle is east, and I'll just type in Jennifer. And if I list that piece of text, I don't think anyone will be surprised that it has a text height of 20. So now what happens if I need text that's half that size? Well, I can go into my text style dialog box again, change the current height now to L100, and now when I put in text, you can see it's half as tall, and if I list it, it's 10. So if I need text in here of different heights, this is how I would manage that. Anytime I need a different height, I change the text style and put text in. Okay, so that's method one that we talked about. Oops, wrong one. Okay, so we've done this one. Let's look at method two. So the second method is different than this. We will have multiple defined text styles, but this time they're based on the font, and we will not predefine the height. All right, so what does that mean? So let's go back to it. And actually, let me, I'll do this one in IntelliCAD. So again, I'm going to type in style, and this is the text style dialog box for IntelliCAD. So the same thing here, I'm going to create a new text style, but we're doing this differently. Remember, this time we're going to make our text style correspond to our font. So I'm going to do a text style Roman S. It's set here, and I'm going to leave that text height set to 0. Okay, so it is my current text style. I'll say OK here. Oh, actually, sorry. Almost missed the important thing. I do need to set that font based on the name. So now what happens when I go to add text? All right. I'm going to do a DT or dtext again. Pick my starting point. And trust me, this is exactly the same in AutoCAD or IntelliCAD. This is the difference between having an assigned text height of 0 versus an assigned text height of something greater than 0. If I have an assigned text height of 0, it's going to ask me every time what my text height is. So if I need text height of 10, I'm going to do that. And I'll type it in. Now what happens if I need a text height of 20? Well, I'm going to go back into dtext, pick another point, but this time I'm going to have to manually type in what that text height should be. Okay, so those are the two different methods of setting up text. Basically, and here we're talking really strictly AutoCAD or IntelliCAD. But when we start adding in that Carlson variable, When you use and have to create text using the Carlson commands, Carlson actually introduces 2 more settings that, the way I say it is, it works with and sometimes against the AutoCAD text style or text commands. And I would have to say, and again, someone from Carlson may want to chime in at some point on this, but Carlson is really meant to use this option too. So setting up a text style with that font is going to work best. Not that it won't work the other way, you just have to look at all your settings. So now, how does Carlson manage its text? So there are 2 new settings in Carlson. In Carlson, we're going to set up the horizontal scale, which is nothing new. This is just the plot scale. So if it's 1 to 40, you'd put a 40 in for your horizontal scale. If it's 1 to 100, you put in 100. And then the text size scaler corresponds to the plotted height of text. So the plotted height, usually L100 we were talking about a minute ago, L100 corresponds to a plotted text height of 0.1. So with Carlson, if we want a plotted text height of 0.1, we're going to set up that text size scaler to be a 0.1. What Carlson then does for us is multiplies the scalar versus the horizontal scale. So let's just do the math a little bit. We're talking about a horizontal scale of 100, text size scalar of 0.1, comes out to a text height in our drawing of 10. So it all works together. So now let's go back, and actually I've got my IntelliCAD. I'm going to draw a line out here, and let's see where Carlson, how we set those things up. Under Settings and Drawing Setup, you'll see here what I was talking about. So the horizontal scale I want to be 100, and then the other place that we need to pay attention is that text plot size. So if I want what we call L100 text, my text plot size is going to be 0.1. And I'll go ahead and say this, and I've actually expressed this to Carlson Tech Support a few times whenever we talk about standards. There's a lot of inconsistency, I would say, in Carlson dialog boxes from one command to the other. Sometimes you'll see it called a text size scaler. Sometimes it's text plot size. So just kind of know what you're getting there. It is all the same thing. So we set our horizontal scale at 100, text plot size at 0.1. We can do it here. Or it's also in individual commands. So let's go to Annotate Defaults. And notice here we have that 100 that we just put in the other dialog box. For my text size scaler, you can see here, I want it to be a 0.1. So I want it to correspond to an L100. And then for text style, I'm not going to put L100 here. I'm going to put that Roman S as my text style. And I'll say OK. And I actually meant to go here a minute ago. But I'm going to auto-annotate this and just pick OK and select that entity. And if I list that text, you can see that it came in at 10, exactly what I wanted. So it used the horizontal scale and the text size scaler that we had specified. Now, what if I need text to be bigger here? So this kind of lets you set up your text heights and your sizes based on what command you're using. If you're labeling areas, you're going to want, actually, I'll skip that because I'm going to show that in 1 second. But if you want a different size here, if I go to Annotate Defaults and say, you know, that really should have been a 0.2, I can do that. It's not going to update automatically, but I can, now when I auto-annotate, and let's just change these to below. I think it's going to delete them anyway, but, and I select that. You can see that now it's just changed that text height to 20, which is what it should have been. So that's how Carlson kind of works with those sizing settings. But area defaults is a good one. If we go over here and double click on lot description, you can see here it's called text size. So you can set up the lot description. This is your lot number. That may need to be a .2. And you may want that text style to be, Roman C, something a little fancier. Square feet, I'm going to have a .1 here, maybe a .08. And then that text style may be something plain like my Roman S, okay? So Carlson gives you a lot of flexibility in using this, and I'll say, it was a little bit of a challenge for me just understanding everything, and I was used to working in Land Desktop, working in basic AutoCAD, and kind of doing all this stuff myself. So it's actually been real handy getting into this. So with that, that's the main part of my presentation. I am going to show you a couple things here and tease a little bit about what's coming in Carlson 2010. And this is just a screen capture of the Standards Drawing Manager coming in 2010. So what this allows you to do, and I'm just going to read this because I asked for a description, and I was told that this new routine draws items that you would categorize and then name with real-world names, such as granite curb. In the example on the screen, you can see this is called Storm Sewer Line with 12-inch RCP. So it's going to draw all the items with your standard CAD entity. So we're still talking about lines, polylines, text, text masking, and wipeouts. But you can also have combinations. So here we're able to pair up the line work, the symbols that go at the end of each of the line work and how those are managed and sized and rotated possibly, along with all of the annotation that maybe you can see down here for the DMH3 rim. You can set up all those annotations. So it's pretty cool. I've seen bits and pieces of it, seen a little demo of it. So I think everybody's going to like it. And then just here are some dialog boxes that you're going to work. You can see in the upper left, you have 3 different tabs for each of these standard elements, I guess you would say. So this is a standard element that has symbol, line work, and annotation characteristics to it. So you have the 3 tabs, so you'll be able to change those and manage it pretty nicely. And I'm not going to say anything more about it because I don't know enough about it quite yet myself. But I think you can look forward to it. And so we're back here. I've had the Carlson connection flashing because I wanted to remind myself to just mention that one more time. For those of you that haven't gone to Carlson Connection, it's really kind of getting started. We launched it in April right before the user conference, and we're hoping it's going to be a one-stop shop for anybody that uses Carlson or wants to know more. Felicia Provenzel and I put it together. She and I are both resellers and consultants and do training and all of that, but we want Carlson Connection to be opened up to everybody. So we'd like to have a lot of input from users. We want tips and tricks and, what's coming in 2010 and those kinds of things. And something that's unique about it, and we really appreciate, their involvement with it, is Carlson has their own side of this website. So there is a Direct from Carlson tab, and I'll plug it a little bit. We need to get more Carlson folks posting up, but it's new to all of us. But that's where you can actually, post questions possibly and get Carlson people to answer. So I think Lad Nelson put something up there maybe this morning even about the new features in 2010. So we really want to get it interactive, get a lot of people commenting and so on. So I think we're going to have some questions. I'm ready to take some questions.
All right, Jennifer, well done job here. We've had a lot of questions come in. I've been able to get to most of them to the group.
Actually, Lad, let me make one more comment.
Okay.
After this is over, on my website at www.thatcadgirl.com, I am going to have a PDF of the PowerPoint if anybody would like it. And it may take a little bit, but the goal is also to post the questions and the answers that have come through in the queue today. So if you all want to keep an eye out for that, or email me and I'll email it to you. So, okay, Lad, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. A question was asked, and I believe I'm going to transpose this properly, is why can't you import blocks through the AutoCAD Design Center anymore? Are you aware of that one at all?
Actually, I wasn't. I don't think I even have anything. Let's see. I don't know. I would have to look into it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's what
that
they mean. I mean, you can do that.
Right. It would be, and if the the inability to add blocks to the AutoCAD Design Center, that is probably that would be functionality within AutoCAD itself.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not something that's
yeah.
within
It
Carlson's
definitely
control.
is that. Yeah. It definitely is that.
Okay. We've also had another question that was if there were any kind of indication of how many attendees received pre-formatted drawing files from others, like engineers or architects, and is there a preferred or best way to convert format from one consultant into the CAD standards format of another?
I'm not sure what you mean the format. If you're talking about standard layers that come from one company and you want to convert them to your company standards, is that the question?
I believe that's the intent of the question, yes.
Okay. The best way to do it, AutoCAD actually has a, let me switch over to my basic AutoCAD menu. AutoCAD has a pretty cool thing under CAD standards. They've got a layer translator. And what's slick about this is that, you're not going to see a whole lot here. Actually, you will. So I'm in Drawing 1. So on the left side are the layers that are in Drawing 1. And on the right side, I can load any DWT file. So here's some that came with Land Desktop. So there's a National CAD standard. Actually, let's do the Land Desktop. So here are the layers that come in from that Land Desktop template file. You can, when you load here, you can either load DWG files, DWT files, anything. So, but what's kind of neat is, let's say you get a file from a consultant, and they have a C building, and of course it's not in here. That figures. That's the only one I had. If you have a C building in the drawing you're working in, and then there's a C building in the standard file, which would be yours, if you hit Map Same, it actually will come down here and it'll actually show you what the translation. So to get the old layer 0 to the new layer 0, this is the new setup for the new layer. So that works well because I'm kind of using a sort of a National CAD standard here. So if others are everybody's using National CAD standard, you may have a different color and line type for your C building. So anyway, I would use this. If you don't do Map Same, you can actually say, I want to map my C building porch to C property line or something like that. So Map. And it shows you the list here. Now, what I recommend is that most companies are going to have consultants that they are all the time pulling drawings in from, or you're always having to convert and send them out to somebody else. If you have to send them to a municipality, they may have their own layers. So one time, take the effort, map everything. After you map it, you got to do it before you hit Translate. Hit Save, and this saves it as a DWS file. But what you would call this is, let's say, out to my favorite surveyor. And then you can save that mapping and that translation. So as long as there's consistency, and I know everybody's probably laughing, as long as there's consistency on both sides, and you always get things in the same format from somebody, you can just apply that and load in that mapping standard or translation standard. So hopefully that answered that.
All right. Another question here that I'll just address. One of the questions that came in was when will Carlson 2010 be available? We are in the process right now of still sort of refining the product for our limited release beta testing. It's not yet been made available to pretty much anyone yet. We're still putting some finishing touches on the actual code itself. We are expecting, however, to have Carlson 2010 out well, as soon as we can, obviously, but I don't have any specific dates and times, but we're hopeful that it'll be in the next, I'd say maybe 8 to 10 weeks from today's post or from today's presentation. So if we can get it out sooner and have the stability and the quality there, we will do so, but that is the overriding goal right now, is to make sure that it is a viable, stable product for everybody. Another question that came in, and one that I don't actually have a direct answer to, is when or will Carlson work with annotative text? I don't have anything specifically to address on that. Jennifer, do you have anything to add? Have you used annotative text on your past?
Oh, not well. I honestly have not. I can't say that I've used it recently, but I have huge high hopes for it. But I will say that I do a little bit of project work at times. And I did try it on a project probably 6 months ago, and I'll just say that I bailed. So they may have made some newer updates, and I mean, you can see I've used 2009 a little bit, but primarily I've stuck with 2008 because it was the most stable and worked really well for me. So I haven't used much on the newer. They may have corrected some of that stability, but what would end up happening is I had it in a perfect scenario. You know, I had an overall drawing at 100 scale, and then I needed to break out plan and profiles at 50 scale, and tried to put all the text in and had it set up. And when it worked beautifully, but it didn't work. You know, I ended up having to do an audit, literally every other command, because it would say that it was showing it at one scale, but I could tell that it wasn't, and when I'd do an audit, it would update it. Or actually, it would say that it found 0 errors, but it would amazingly update. So I had a lot of frustration with it. I hope they get it right because it's a cool thing. So that's as much as I can offer.
All right. A question that came in, I'll address directly, is will Carlson 2010 be available in 64-bit? The plan is right now that, yes, we will have 64-bit support, or the goal is that we'll have it supported with the initial release of Carlson 2010. We do have a number of technical hurdles to overcome that's actually being addressed by, it's being felt by the entire market, not just necessarily Carlson. But we are definitely working towards 64-bit support, and if it doesn't make the initial release, we will have it available shortly thereafter. So it is very high on our priority list, and we do expect that to be part of our offering for the Carlson 2010 product. Another question that came in, actually 2 questions back-to-back, was is there a site where the national CAD standards can be downloaded? Jennifer, do you want to speak to that regard?
No. I mean, yes, I will speak to it, but no. I will say that I actually paid, I can't remember, $400 or something for it because I found it online, and it said that a CD came with it. And I was really excited to get it. It came with probably the largest 3-ring binder I've ever seen. It was over 800 pages, and the CD that came with it was a PDF of those pages. So if somebody wants to contact me, let's say I can help out. But no, not that I know of online. Is there a place to download it? You can pay for it, but I wanted to let people know what you get when you pay for it. So it's a PDF. There's a lot of work. I had my mom help me type in a lot of the layers, so I've got a bunch of them in Excel spreadsheet, and I can probably help a few people out.
Okay. One of the questions that came in was, what about the use of paper space? It was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, but they were curious if we could just talk briefly about it. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but maybe just address a little bit on the paper space functionality.
What was the question again?
Just about what's the use, or when and where should paper space be used?
Oh boy, 100 different answers. The benefit of paper space is that, well, let's back up and say the benefit to using paper space is you can use model space a lot more effectively. Model space is really meant to draw your entire model. So in mechanical, that entire model may be a piece or a part, a mechanical part. In architectural, that entire model may be your whole building. In civil, your entire model space would be your site. So as everybody knows, you may have a project that's 10 acres or 1,000 acres. Well, you draw in model space at those real-world dimensions. So if your boundary line is 1,028.34 feet long, you draw it that far in model space. Well, when we go to plot, all of a sudden we have that 1,000-foot line that needs to obviously fit on a 24 by 36 sheet of paper. What paper space and different layout tabs allow you to do is just kind of put a frame around those areas in model space. You can show them at different scales. The way that I recommend using paper space is that for every sheet that you need to plot, you should have a tab or a layout tab for each sheet that you're plotting. Like I said, there are a lot of different ways that we could answer it. If you have a different tab for each sheet that needs to be plotted, there are two ways to do it. Some people will put the title block in that tab and will scale up the title block. So if you're talking about a 1:100 scale drawing, for those people, their title block would be 36 inches times 100. It would be that wide. My preference and what I would always recommend is that your title blocks inserted in your layout tabs are put in at 1:1. Then when you create a viewport, which is that window showing the different areas of your model in that title block, you can set that viewport at any scale that you need. So if you try 100 scale and it doesn't work, you may need to bump it up to a 200 scale. And so that would be your viewport scale. So you're kind of scaling that viewport window instead of scaling the title block up around it. The benefit to doing that is that, again, using the example I did a minute ago, you may have an overall site plan that's a 1:100 scale, and various and sundry plan and profile sheets are at 50. Well, I could have one layout tab that shows, because I'm scaling the viewport, one layout tab that's showing my overall scale. The viewport scaled at 1:100, so it shows everything. The next layout tab, title block's exactly the same size, but the viewport scale is 1:50 because it's showing my plan and profile. Now, when I go to plot, if you use Sheet Set Manager or something like that, and there are other, I think, Plot All Layouts, the plot setup, when all of your title blocks are in there at 1:1 and you scale through viewports instead, all of your plot setup is exactly the same. So the plot scale is 1:1 then. Your CTB or STB is probably the same. In some cases it may not be. Your plot parameters, so the window around it, is going to be the same. So I don't know, I probably went on too far. That's a class. I would recommend people put something like that. So that's a really big issue. Carlson has, and IntelliCAD has a little ways to go on that, but my understanding is I think the layouts are going to be a lot more functional in the next release of IntelliCAD. So.
Okay. Let's see here. Question came in. Go ahead.
Yeah, for those of you that are going to leave, I'm happy to hang around and continue answering questions. I think we had a bunch of them, but for those of you that are having to bail out, I appreciate everybody coming. And please email me or let me know of any questions.
All right. One question that came in is, does Jennifer use the layer library tool from Carlson? It is a good tool and for CAD standards and layer setup.
I will say no. I actually kind of stumbled. I had a question for Dave Carlson a couple days ago, and he pointed me to that. And I will say it's not anything that I've actually wandered around too much, and I got in and got somewhat lost a couple days ago. So I saw it. It looks an awful lot like Layer Translator, and I think I've got high hopes for it, but I can't say that I use it.
Okay. We had a question came in. question reads, I'm from the old school. Is there an update to MV setup?
I don't. I'm older school. When I don't even use MV setup. I just type in MV and just drag my own window. So I don't know that there is one. I think everybody else in the world has used MV setup other than me. I've just always stuck with the old MV for MView. So I can't answer that. I'm not sure if there's anything newer to that. But stick with it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with old school. It's going to continue to work.
Let's see here. There was a question regarding IntelliCAD. Which version of IntelliCAD will be found in Carlson 2010? We've got the IntelliCAD 6.6 engine is being slated, initially slated for the Carlson 2010 product, and we're continuing to look at the IntelliCAD 7.0 engine. We'll hope to have that supported as soon as we can. Question maybe, Jennifer, that you can address is, how important is it to have standard menu layouts in a business, and what's the easiest way to accomplish this?
You know, kind of going back to whoever said they were old school, it kind of depends. If you have a lot of people, that are dependent on them, it may be pretty necessary. If you have a lot of people that know the type ins and that kind of thing, I would say it wouldn't be that critical. It also depends whether you're asking about a lot of customization in those menus. So is it just the order? Is it, I know, for instance, in Land Desktop, one thing that I like to do is create my own set of menus across the top that took a few menus from Map and took a few menus from Land Desktop, or most of the menus from Land Desktop, a couple from Civil Design, and so on, and created one to where I didn't have to switch back and forth. So I think it's going to be up to how much control. I tend to leave that to the individual and trust them to do that. Again, it's I think the guiding philosophy is still going to be whatever is going to make it easier for them to do it per the standard, or you need to make it easier to do it by the standard than it is to do it not by the standard. So in your office, that may be the case. You may need to create those. So. Okay.
A question that came in that I'll address here is the future versions of Carlson Survey slated for the Spanish language. I believe we are looking at language translations for a number of our products. I don't have any details yet on foreign language versions of Carlson, but please feel free to contact us directly for any availability and or special requirements that you might have regarding to language translations for our international clients that are in attendance today. Let's see here. Another question that came in. Question was raised, I've never seen how to set up a proper viewport for a layout. Is there an archived webinar that covers this? I don't know if we have an archived webinar that talks specifically about how to create a proper viewport, because that's really dependent, I believe, on job to job and what your viewport needs to show. But maybe, I don't know if, Jennifer, you have something quick and dirty that you might be able to show.
Actually, well, a couple things. I'm going to kind of, well, actually, I'll just tell you, if you go to my website, there's probably several there that would help. On my website, if you go to, I've got a resources page, and I have a lot of handouts and that I've written over the years, and I've got one specifically on how to set up paper space and model space. Also, I've got one on how to do like a view rotation, and this is outside of Carlson. So this is basic AutoCAD, and it would apply to IntelliCAD for the most part. I think off the top of my head, I would think it would apply to IntelliCAD as well. There may be one or two small minor differences. But yeah, I do have a paper written up on that.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. There's a smattering of other questions in here. I think we're getting close to the end. I don't know. Let me see if I can just check. This is one I don't know if I quite understand. Can the layer selector drop-down be set to key on the third character of the layer name? And I believe that might be for if you have like the national CAD standards potentially where you have a C dash or a V dash. They might
yeah.
need to go, and I don't know if that's possible inside of the layer select.
Not that I'm aware of. Because even if you type in the first character, it ends up setting it current. So I've actually stayed away from that myself.
Okay.
But I can see if somebody would try to use it, I could see why it would be beneficial.
Okay. Another question came in, is there a 2009 version of Carlson Survey with the AutoCAD OEM engine available? And the answer to that question is yes, and that is actually it's a very small little minor upgrade fee for anybody who's coming from a previous version of Carlson Survey AutoCAD into the newer product. So please contact your local Carlson dealer or Jennifer here, who is also one of our medallion dealers, and they can assist you with pricing on that upgrade. Let's see here, and I believe that's about it for our questions for right now. I'll sort of go back through and revisit the list, and for those that are still or that we haven't specifically addressed, we'll try to go and address them offline or on a one-on-one basis. So Jennifer, is there anything else that you'd like to offer to the group?
No, I think I'm good, and I appreciate everybody's time. We've still got pretty good number that's still here. So. Okay.
All right, well, on behalf of Carlson Software, Jennifer, thank you for your presentation, and thank you to the audience for attending and taking time from your schedules today to learn a little bit about the CAD standards capability between AutoCAD and IntelliCAD. And we will go ahead and end the presentation now. Thank you.